Good morning, everyone. My name is Marco Raffinetti. I'm the CEO of Hyphen Hydrogen Energy. So we're a project development company established by two shareholders, a Namibian company, in order to bid on and develop Namibia's first large-scale green hydrogen project. So we're a combination of two shareholders, one from that is a pioneer in the renewable energy space, and another that's got a 30-year track record of doing large-scale infrastructure projects on the African continent. So I think maybe why in Namibia first, because Namibia has established a very clear policy and program to advance the development of large-scale green hydrogen projects in its country, and we participated in the tender process, and that's how we ended up in Namibia. And I think also why Namibia is Namibia has all the ingredients necessary to be one of the lowest cost producers of green hydrogen in the world, because of your unique sun, wind and large availability of land. So we're still in the relative early stages. What I'd say now is we're in the hardcore engineering phase. So we are doing what we call the front-end engineering design. So that's designing out the entire project and then putting the commercial structuring of the project together. So we really now are into the meat of the project. All the preliminary early work has been done. All the conceptual engineering design and what we call pre-feed engineering design, that's all being completed. So we now really are focused on project execution. In terms of timing, we hope to start construction at the end of 2026, early 2027, and around 2 odd years for our first phase of development. And we're looking at producing 1 million tons of green ammonia from our green hydrogen in the first phase, and then followed up by another 1 million tons coming online in 2030. So I think it is an incredibly ambitious project, and roughly it's around 100 million euros that we need to spend in order to develop the project just to a stage where we're ready to start constructing. That's how complicated the project is and how much engineering design goes into the preparation to develop a project of this nature. And we're about a fifth of the way into that process at the moment. In terms of the number of people that we currently employ, we are proudly Namibian business. We're a Namibian registered company owned by foreign shareholders, and soon to have a participation by the government of Namibia as well, who has elected to take a 24% shareholding in the project. And we are building a Namibian team in order to deliver on the project. So we are around 26 people full-time employed in Hyphen at the moment, and all but 2 of those, including myself, are not Namibians. So everybody other than 2 of us are Namibians, which is a testament to our commitment to government to try and localize as many jobs as possible. During the construction phase, we think we'll need around 15,000 people over what will be a 4-year construction phase for both phase 1 and 2, and we're targeting to have about 90% of those from local Namibians, and we're undertaking studies now to see what capacity exists in the market and what training interventions we need to make in order to make those jobs available to Namibians. So Namibians can be upskilled to take advantage of those jobs. And then we're also looking at around, during the operational phase, around 3,000 people employed in the business. And we're going through a similar process to assessing the capabilities and the available talent within Namibia to see how many of those we can fill with local Namibians. And again, the majority of those jobs, 90%, we'd like to be filled by Namibians. Project site and location was selected by government, not by us, and we tendered on two pieces of land that were put out by the Namibian government in around mid-2021. And that's why we're in Lüderitz. And I think the reason why government selected that location is if you had to throw a dart at a map of the world and try to find a location where you have wind at night, sun during the day at very, very high level, what we call capacity factors, so lots of sun, lots of wind, which are the ingredients to make low-cost hydrogen. That particular place in the south to the south of Lüderitz is one of the 3 best places in the world for combined sun and wind resources to make green hydrogen. So I think large-scale infrastructure projects can have a very positive economic impact, because if you take the relative scale of our project versus the size of Namibia, it's a very, very large, it will have a very, very large impact just because of its relative scale. And on Lüderitz in particular, it's a very, very small town, 15 to 20,000 people. So you can imagine 15,000 people that we need during the construction period coming into that environment that'll have quite a big impact on that region. So on an overall basis, the project is likely to have a very positive impact on Namibia's economy, job creation, earning of foreign exchange, all those things that drive economic growth, as well as secondary industries. And then in Lüderitz itself, it'll have a transformative impact on the town, similar to the way that oil and gas that is also proposed to be serviced out of Lüderitz will have an impact on that town. So it's quite interesting to me that Lüderitz was, or the diamonds that were discovered in that part of the world in the early 1900s were the first economic backbone of Namibia's economy, and now you have two new industries that are going to be the backbone of Namibia's economy moving forward in the form of oil and gas and green hydrogen that are going to find their home in Lüderitz. And then I think the difference with oil and gas and green hydrogen is green hydrogen can also be made in other valleys in Namibia, and we know that there's active development by both the government and the private sector looking at project opportunities in the Ronga region and then right up in the north in Kuneni. So I think that's an excellent question, because I think it's an exciting time for Namibians. There's a lot of interest in the green hydrogen sector. Personally, we've done quite a lot of stakeholder engagement. There's still a lot more to do. I think we started off with our first stakeholder engagements in early 2022 after being picked as preferred bidder for the project. We started initially with environmental stakeholder engagements because we thought that was incredibly important to ensure that we start engaging with local communities that have protection of the environment at the center of their heart. And then we followed that up with a series of stakeholder engagement sessions that we've undertaken together with government. I think we've gone to 8 of the country's regions so far, so we've got a few more regions still to go, and hopefully we can complete those in the next few months. And we will continue to undertake these stakeholder engagement sessions as we move forward. And primarily they'll be in two broad groups: environmental, where there's a separate legislated process that we follow, and then on the local content, job creation, socio-economic development aspects, where we have a dedicated team of people looking at driving stakeholder engagement and seeing how we can engage communities, job seekers, companies that are looking to be part of or contribute their services towards execution of the project. We're looking to engage with all of those stakeholders. So I think protection of the natural environment is always fundamental and critical in the execution of any project, and that's why in order to undertake any project, one needs to complete what's called an environmental and social impact assessment. And we at the beginning of that process. It is a complicated environment. We've spent 18 months just doing the studies to prepare to do the environmental impact assessment. Normally an environmental impact assessment will be done in a 12-month period. So we've taken 18 months just to prepare, to make sure we really understand the environment and that we can execute the project having the lowest environmental footprint. So I think a lot of the anxiety from the community comes from a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding of what the impact of the project will be. And I think the best way to think about these areas or these developments is the Saukaheb, the area where our project is located. It's 22,000 odd square kilometers. Our footprint, we think, is probably going to be in the area of 115 square kilometers. And that's around 0.5% of the entire land area. And not all the area in the Saukaheb is equally sensitive from a biodiversity perspective. You have areas that are incredibly sensitive, and then areas with lower levels of biodiversity sensitivity and importance. And what we're looking to do is design the project that we limit as far as possible any impacts in the high biodiversity sensitive areas and concentrate development in the low biodiversity areas. So this is something that's very, very close to our hearts, and it's not something that we've only started focusing on now. Even when we bid on the project, the single largest piece of external research that we undertook and commissioned for our bidding process was to understand the complexity of that environment and how we could safely and responsibly execute a project in that environment to the highest international standards. So we're not only looking to comply with Namibian legislation, which is very, very good when it comes to environmental protection. Namibia is one of the few countries that has the protection of environment enshrined in its constitution. That's very unique amongst countries in the world, but also aligning with the international best practice for environmental protection, and that comes from what we call the Equator Principles, which are set out by the International Finance Corporation, which are seen as the gold standard. And the one of particular importance to us is called Performance Standard 6, which deals exclusively or specifically with environmental protection and socio-economically sustainable development. So it's not just about complying with Namibian legislation, it's the highest international standards and deliberately developing the project in a way that we limit environmental impacts as far as possible. Well, I think practically, a project that is as ambitious and large scale of this cannot be executed without the support of government, the same way that any large scale developments like in the oil and gas sector, they're so big that they need close government collaboration. So we have an agreement that we've concluded with government called the Feasibility and Implementation Agreement that sets out the manner that we engage with government. So it is government strategy that initiated the tender process and the broader green industrialization plan, and we are but one element within that broader plan. So what we do is we look to design our project in a way that supports government's longer term ambitions for green industrialization, so that our project isn't developed in isolation, but it's developed in accordance with government strategy and policy, and that's done through a formal engagement structure that we have with a council established by government called the Green Hydrogen Council, led by DG Kanjozi as the chair, but comprising key ministers, and we engage with that council as the project develops to ensure that we are aligned with government's development objectives, and we also engage with government as a shareholder. So government has exercised an option to take a 24% equity shareholding in the business. So we also have an engagement with government on that level. So if you wanted to break it out, simplistically, government has made available the land for the project, has made available the policy to advance the development of its green hydrogen industry, and then is an active participant in ensuring that the project is developed in accordance with its strategy, and then on behalf of the Namibian people has established a fund in order for government on behalf of Namibian people to own an equity interest in the project, to benefit not just from land rentals and royalties and the secondary effects from the project, but as a true partner in the project. The green energy transition is very, very difficult. The scale of projects that need to be executed for the world to achieve net zero are difficult. The scale of investment is enormous, and green hydrogen is a critical component in the energy transition. It's not the solution to, as in all things in life, there are certain solutions for certain problems, and some solutions are better suited to problems than other solutions. And I think for green hydrogen in particular, there are certain sectors of the economy that just simply cannot be decarbonized without green hydrogen. And so therefore green hydrogen has an enormous part to play in the energy transition. That doesn't mean it's easy. These projects are incredibly large. So just our project on its own is enough to decarbonize one large steel mill. So we need thousands of these projects, not hundreds. So the energy transition is difficult. But it presents an enormous opportunity for Namibians to participate in the green energy transition. So if you look at the scale of development that's currently happening in the world, so just last year, more solar and wind was built in 1 year than the entire installed capacity of nuclear today. And that is set to double by the end of the decade. So what used to take humanity 20 years ago, it would take us a year to build a gigawatt of solar. We now do that every single day. And I think that power of scale up of renewable energy is still quite poorly understood. And the competitive advantage of the world, what makes the world go round is energy, and energy the energy source that is needed for the new world is clean energy, and Namibia, through its natural endowment, is home to one of the best renewable energy sources in the world, combined with an enormous space. So even if you look at government's broad ambition for green hydrogen, to achieve 15 million tons of green hydrogen production, around 1% of Namibia's landmass would be required. So yes, there's a lot of concerns on the environmental side, but it's relatively small in relation to the overall scale of the country. That doesn't mean this is easy. This is very hard. We need the support of government, of local communities, in order for Namibia to be able to take advantage of this energy transition. And I think I would encourage everybody to go look at Namibia's green hydrogen green industrialization strategy that has got on its website. It's very, very informative and looks at and you can see, Namibians can see how ambitious your government and your country is being in terms of trying to take advantage of and position itself to be a beneficiary of the energy transition, not just in terms of exporting green energy, but using that cheap energy available in Namibia to drive industrialization.